Well, hello, this is Deborah Johnson with the Power of After Show, and we are all about helping you move ahead at halftime of life, mid career, answering what's next, giving you a lot of those tools. And today I'm approaching a topic that really I've not approached before, but I feel it's very, very important, talking about worldview and our future decisions because it really makes a difference. And in the story of Wicked, there's a powerful moment where we see how easily someone can be labeled wicked just so that others can feel justified in calling themselves good. And it's a reminder that our worldview shapes how we define right and wrong, and ultimately how we make decisions. And from the earliest pages of scripture, biblical scripture, to the daily choices we face now, the tension between good and evil is real, and recognizing it clearly matters. And the question is not just like what we believe, but how those beliefs guide our future decisions. So today on the Power of After Show, we're talking about why defining your worldview and aligning it with your core values is essential for clarity, for courage, and confidence in taking your next steps. So stay tuned. You've spent years building what matters. Now, with Power of After courses and elite mentorship, it's time to move forward with intention and impact. This is the Power of After Show. Let's get started. In the movie Wicked, I was struck by a line that Elphaba said to Glenda, paraphrased as, well, people need someone to call wicked so they can believe they are good. Well, Elphaba, she realizes that she doesn't become wicked, that she's just named wicked because Oz needs a villain to preserve its sense of goodness. And if our worldview is based upon something being wicked so that we can recognize the good, well, all we have to do is look at the creation story of the creation account of Adam, Eve, and the serpent. However, Adam and Eve, well, they could have saved themselves a lot of pain and hardship had they truly recognized the evil for what it was and made a personal decision to turn away from temptation. And I know we blame a lot of that on Eve, but really it was both of their faults. Life gives us many opportunities to make choices to distinguish right from wrong, good from evil, and even best from better. Well, how do we make those decisions? Well, I propose those decisions should be based upon our core values, which is based upon our worldview. And how does religion play a part in our worldview? I really want to approach that today. So, here I'm going to talk about religion, worldview, and Animal House. Well, religion, it plays a part of our worldview no matter what our belief. Even for a person claiming to be an agnostic or atheist, well, they're basing that belief or unbelief as their religion. And that belief will influence decisions of ultimate consequence, good and evil, and even political affiliation. Deep down, there is a belief of whether or not there's a higher power or there is no higher power and no accountability. And if there's no accountability, chaos is the result. Now, National Lampoon's Animal House portrays reckless behavior, a lack of structure, impulsive decisions, and escalating disorder within a college fraternity setting, all played for comedy. But the absence of discipline and accountability, it creates a chain reaction of mayhem that defines the movie's tone. Well, well, we really don't want that for our lives, at least most of it don't. And this type of mayhem, it holds some truth as it applies not only to a society, but our future decisions. What sort of guidance are we depending on to create a path for our future? Well, there are many philosophers and wise sayings, but those sayings alone, well, they're not enough to answer the tougher questions of the universe and solve the ultimate question of the purpose of life. So, how is worldview value? How can it serve as a foundation? Worldview core value. A strong worldview, it shapes how we interpret both history and the future. As historian Tom Holland, make sure you get the link to this in the show notes and in the article that comes with this. Well, he explains in his book, Dominion, The Making of the Western Mind, he explains how the Apostle Paul embedded a revolutionary idea into Western civilization, and that every human being possesses inherent and equal worth. Well, this is talked about in Galatians 3:28, the biblical account of Galatians, most commonly dated 48 to 49 AD. And here, the Apostle Paul declared that distinctions of ethnicity, status, and gender were no longer ultimate. A radical flattening of the hierarchies in a world built on power and privilege. And at that time, Caesar's power was empire wide and ultimate in legal matters, and Herod's was regional and granted by Rome. Just look at some of your history. Paul's teaching of universal equality, along with the sanctity of every human body, became the moral seedbed for human rights, anti-slavery movements, protections for women and children, and modern assumptions about dignity and justice. And when our worldview core value recognizes the inherent worth of every person, this is very, very much our biblical history. It influences every future decision. How we lead, how we build businesses, treat employees, serve clients, steward power, and design systems. And Paul's depth charge beneath ancient civilization, it reminds us that ideas shape centuries. And if we anchor our decisions in a worldview that honors dignity, protects the vulnerable, and rejects exploitation, well, we're not merely reacting to culture, we're really helping to shape it. And the Apostle Paul understood power structures from the inside as a Roman citizen by birth. Now, this is a big deal because he was trained as a Pharisee under one of the most respected rabbis of his time. And he spoke with intellectual authority and cultural credibility as he proclaimed a message of universal dignity and the fulfillment of the law under a Lord greater than Caesar. And that was radical at the time, hugely radical at the time. Caesar did not like that. So how do we build values with faith as a foundation? The author Dave Barton frequently describes two different worldviews. If you're not familiar with him, it's very worth looking at some of his material because he really describes this so very well. One of those worldviews is a biblical worldview, and the other is a secular humanistic worldview. This makes a difference. If you've not really approached this before, it's very simple in many ways, but also very applicable in our lives. And a biblical worldview, it begins with the belief that God exists as creator and moral authority, and that truth is objective because it's grounded in his character and revealed in Scripture. And in this framework, human beings possess inherent dignity because they're created in the image of God, and rights are understood to be God-given rather than just granted by government. And as Barton explains in his book, Original Intent, make sure you get the link to that in the article. The courts, the Constitution, and religion, this perspective, it holds that government's primary role is to secure pre-existing God-given rights rather than just redefine them. And this worldview is what much of our U.S. Constitution is based upon. You can see this in many of Barton's writings as well. He goes back to exactly what the Constitution, the founders, based our country upon, and the freedoms that we experience, that we have, which are so, um, I mean, they are just wonderful. If you've ever lived anywhere else, in a place that you have restricted freedom, you will realize how valuable that is. And by contrast, a secular or humanistic worldview, it locates authority primarily in human reason, in culture, or collective consensus rather than divine revelation. And truth and morality are often viewed as just relative, shaped by societal development and evolving ethical frameworks. And human dignity, it's grounded in shared humanity or social contract rather than divine image bearing. And rights are typically understood as constructed or defined through political systems and legal agreements. And we know how fast that can change as we have faced in recent years, we have faced some of those lockdowns and political systems and things that we did not think we'd ever face. James W. Sire, in his book, The Universe Next Door, he describes secular humanism as the belief that reality is explained only by the natural world and that human beings themselves decide what is right, meaningful, and purposeful. So, to build values with faith as a foundation, we begin by anchoring our decisions in the belief that truth is not self created, but it's discovered through alignment with God's character and principles. A faith based framework reminds us that every person carries inherent dignity and that leadership is stewardship rather than dominance, and that integrity matters even when unseen. And instead of reacting to cultural shifts alone, we can evaluate choices through enduring standards and asking not merely, well, what works? Or, uh, but, but we can ask, really, what is right? And this is why our core values are so important. When faith shapes our worldview, our values become consistent. They become compassionate and purpose driven, influencing how we lead. And it's part of how I help put core values and defining that. There's an umbrella of faith. What do we really believe in? It influences how we lead, how we serve, how we build organizations, and shape the future with both conviction and humility. All of the other values fit right within that umbrella. So let's talk about the process of making wise decisions. And I don't know about you, but I like to make wise decisions that are going to be beneficial and not have to spin my wheels and think, I have to go through that again. Making wise decisions begins with anchoring ourselves in our core values, especially when faith, dignity, integrity, growth, and stewardship form that foundation. So instead of reacting just emotionally or impulsively, we pause and we can ask, hmm, does this align with who we say we are? Well, if we've not done that, it's time to do it now. Does this align with really who we say we are? Or are we just putting on an act? When our worldview affirms that honesty, that inherent human worth and accountability to something greater than ourselves, our decisions move beyond convenience or pressure. There's so much talk today about authenticity. What are you really authentic about? And those values are also not based on guilt or a feeling of penance, just like what was demonstrated in that 2016 movie, Burnt, with Bradley Cooper, who lived with regret. I talk about this quite a bit in my book, Bad Code. If you've not read that, I talk about that there in our spiritual area, because it's important for us to think through some of those values. We evaluate options through clarity of purpose, long-term impact, and character. And strong values, they act as guardrails, just like the bumpers in a bowling alley. Now, those bumpers, they don't eliminate the difficulty, But wow, they keep our ball from drifting into the next lane with important boundaries. If you've ever watched any beginners, it's kind of challenging to keep it right into your own lane at times. So, even with strong values, many of us still feel stuck at times, uncertain of our next move, circling between fear and possibility. And that difficulty often comes from competing priorities and from external expectations, fatigue, or the fear of making the wrong choice. And sometimes those expectations, we just put them on ourselves. And when we're unsure, we may confuse motion with progress or avoid decisions altogether. And in those moments, returning to our core values, it restores direction. And instead of asking, well, what's the safest option? We can ask, what really aligns with our purpose? What reflects faith over fear? And what honors long term integrity over short term relief? It really helps us evaluate some of that risk that we always talk about. And values don't just remove uncertainty, but they provide a steady compass when the path forward just feels a little unclear. We don't know where those boundaries are. We don't know where the bumper pads are, but the values give us those boundaries. So let's apply this. How do we apply this? I hope to give you some easy ways to do this. First of all, you need to spend some time with your core values. And of course, I have outlined this. I've got this little book right by me that I've also written called Stop Circling. And in the appendix of Stop Circling is a whole part on core values. It's extremely valuable to go through that. And it really goes into a lot more details. So as we apply this, I thought about my allergies. Anytime my allergies that I've had my whole life, anytime they really start kicking in and I'm not around a cat, I realize our home's filter probably needs changed. Actually, our home's filters, we have a couple. So we have two main filters, and when we replace them, it's amazing how much dirt is on them. It's actually kind of gross. And it's a good illustration of how defining our worldview and regularly reviewing our core values, it filters decisions that would otherwise be cloudy and unclear. Just like those dirty filters, they don't let the light through them, they don't let the air run through them. And when we're clear about what we believe to be true, about our faith, about our human dignity, integrity, stewardship, and purpose, we can create a filter through which every opportunity, challenge, and next step can be evaluated. And we don't need a wicked character in Oz to preserve a sense of goodness. And instead of drifting with cultural pressure, which there's so much today, all you have to do is look on social media. There is so much cultural pressure and posting, and you don't know what to believe sometimes, or making fear-based choices. What if you're afraid of missing out? What if you're afraid of doing the wrong thing? Well, we can move with intention and confidence. A well-defined worldview, it stabilizes us in seasons of uncertainty and it sharpens our discernment, helping us distinguish between just what's really maybe merely urgent and what's truly aligned with who we are and our purpose. And when our values are clear, our future decisions, they just become much more consistent and our confidence grows and our next steps, they reflect the purpose rather than confusion. So I'm going to give you just 3 steps to immediately apply. You can apply these right now, this week. So step 1. Number 1, define what you believe. What do you believe? Do you believe in a higher power? Do you believe in something definitely that you can go to, or are you an agnostic, atheist? Define at least what you believe. Where are you? Where are you on that spectrum? And then number 2, Review your core values. Now, your core values a lot of times will be based upon what you believe. So really think through that. Are you questioning? Well, spend some time reading. There are some wonderful resources. I will put those in the article. A lot of people that were trying to disprove some of the biblical worldviews, some of the biblical accounts. And they have spent years doing this. And you can see what the outcome was, that they came to know really what they felt then is the true truth. Study some of those things. Don't just leave that to just trying to see what other people are doing. Do that for yourself. Define what you believe, and then review your core values. Going through, I have a lot of free resources as well, even on Stop Circling. I have a lot of free downloads that you can get. So get those, or get the book. The books books are worth it. And step 3, let your worldview act as a compass for your life. And this is important to review this often, to review what you believe. What do you really believe? Because it's going to influence everything. We're all on the train. We're not going to live forever. We're all on that train. Define what you believe. And then review what you really stand for. What are those core values? There's usually an umbrella of faith over everything. What do you believe? And then the values, integrity, hardworking, everything else that you put underneath. And then let that worldview, the worldview is what you believe in your core values, let that act as your compass. It can help you make those decisions, which is so helpful at this time of life. There's a lot of questions. What's next? What should I use? What should I do? Where should I go? Kind of relax in that. Spend time doing this. I tell you, there'll be a lot more clarity. When we know really what we stand for, what we believe, it helps you define your schedule. It helps you design how you're going to spend your time, your commitments. My commitment's always been very much with my family, but of course my work too. I love my work. And I feel like I've got definitely abilities and gifts that I love to keep using. And so I want to be using those and respect those and not just throw those aside. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope it's really helped you. Again, get the article, goalsforyourlife.com/newsletter. And we have articles all on my website. And we have a YouTube channel. This is also on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe. You will get I put out a lot of video, and video is king right now. It's always fun to watch on video. So make sure you subscribe there, and make sure you join me again next week, because I will be here. Thanks so much for joining me today. And I look forward to being with you again next time. So bye-bye for now. Thanks so much for spending time with me today. I love bringing you insights to help you maximize your skills, resources, and experience at mid-career and beyond, so that you can make your next chapter your most impactful and purposeful yet. I'm Deborah Johnson, and I can't wait to be with you again next time on the Power of After show.